Other interesting business news, you have Neil deGrasse Tyson. And when I say business news, I apologize. I mean other interesting cultural news. You have Neil deGrasse Tyson has his politically infused ideologies broken on a live debate with the Triggernometry podcast. Now, Neil deGrasse Tyson is actually one of the great examples of, you see a long format interview with him, and after a while, you kind of see the same things. And he's become, to many people, more and more insufferable. You could be telling him the cure for cancer, he wouldn't know. You could tell him the cure to cure hunger or to cure anything. If you told him, he would never know. Because he talks over everyone. And it's one of those annoying things where after a couple of interviews, I stop tuning into the podcasts that have him because you will never get the other person never gets a word in edgewise. And it's not really a constructive conversation. It's just him steamrolling the conversation. So not really entertaining and really kind of just got boring after a while. Now, allegedly, he's a brilliant scientist who's very respected throughout the scientific community. And then recently he decided to start to examine politics. And in the United States, a big political and cultural thing in the United States is people who are transitioning as well as people who are identifying differently. And Neil, who is an alleged scientist, he said, well, there's no such thing as a gender binary. It's not as if you're born with certain chromosomes. It's kind of a mixture, kind of like a mixing, so I'd say maybe a Shirley Temple. You got different parts, depending on what day it is, whatever you want. And interestingly enough, well, there's a lot of backlash to this interview. And he first tries to address his original outburst, but then throughout the interview, interestingly enough, it's almost as if, again, you see the same thing where he won't let you get a word in edgewise, and it seems like maybe he's mentally broken in terms of everything he's pushing is emotional rhetoric. He's not actually talking about scientific, quantifiable things, which as a scientist, one would think he would know that. So without further ado, and again, I appreciate your patience. If you know a good software where you do picture-in-picture in real-time production, I'd greatly appreciate it. I've tried 2 or 3, and I keep having the same issues. So any feedback as we make the show better together is greatly appreciated. So without further ado, I will play the infamous Neil deGrasse Tyson.
The XXXY chromosomes are insufficient because when we wake up in the morning, we exaggerate whatever feature we want to portray the gender of our choice. Suppose no matter my chromosomes, today I feel 80% female, 20% male. I'm gonna put on makeup. I'm gonna do that. Tomorrow I might feel 80% male. I'll remove the makeup and I'll wear a muscle shirt. Why do you care?
Which is the most rudimentary political, I was about to say argument. It's not really an argument. It's more of a whiny thing. They always ask, why do you care? You see this in every political and cultural debate. It's mentally vacuous to say the least. But typically speaking, when it comes to certain political initiatives, you'll, one, be told, this isn't happening, you're crazy. It's not happening. Then you'll be told, well, yes, it's just happening a little bit. Then you'll be told, well, yes, it's happening, but why do you care? Well, you're the one with this new idea. You're the one that's supposed to be telling me, what's the upside of this? And then you're forced to accept it, and then you're forced to celebrate it. That's, politically speaking and culturally speaking, that's how many new ideas have been adopted throughout the years. So that was his plea. Why do you care? And he sounds just like a rudimentary leftist political news anchor or a leftist activist, where that's just the emotional argument. Why do you care? Well, again, you're supposed to be a scientist, Neil, or so I thought.
What business is it of yours?
Wow, some people say I stutter bad. He just had 3 whats in a row. And again, I'm working on that. Thanks to the comments, I know it's an issue.
To require that I fulfill your inability to think of gender on a spectrum. My only point was that if who you decide is male and female in the street is a construct of a chromosome.
Oh, I gotta love when it resets when you get the, let's see here.
Yours gender.
Go back here. So now he's going to pretend to address that clip as he's I feel bad for these guys. They're trying to interview him, which again, trying to interview Neil deGrasse Tyson as Geez Louise, he's just going to, it really doesn't matter what you say, because he's just going to, he has his agenda, he has the messages that he wants to push. He really doesn't want it back and forth or input. He just wants to be able to steamroll everything.
My only point was that if who you decide is male and female in the street is a construct of style and trends and what the beauty industrial complex wants you to see, if that's how we establish gender, then maybe some people want to be fluid within that gender identify. So they'll wear a skirt but maybe have a beard, or they'll mix and match that in whatever way
But Neil,
you want.
sorry.
Hold on. I'm not. Wait. I'm almost done.
Steamroll.
I'm almost done. So,
Okay.
if a person using the tools of the beauty industrial complex wants to mix and match this,
Yeah.
and they are expressing their freedom in a free country to do so, what?
You're supposed to be a scientist. Now you're saying, well, it's about their freedom to dress up. Well, that's not the core substance of the argument that people are having in the United States about this cultural debate. But again, every time, I can't help but think every time I see an interview with him, he just seems less and less impressive, more and more rudimentary, to say the least.
Why is your job to tell them not to?
Okay.
That's my
Here we go.
only point. And so
That's-
I'm speaking of gender expression and the
Yes.
freedom to do so. And
I will
if you
tell you why
if you want
why
to
people are talking
restrict
about it.
that, then what country
Nobody wants
are
to, hold on,
we living
hold
in?
on.
Yeah,
Steamroll.
go ahead.
So first of all, I don't know a single person.
Holy crap, this person gets a word in edgewise. I'm impressed. That usually doesn't happen.
And we've talked to trans people on the show. We have trans employees at Triggernometry. We've spoken to all sorts of people about this issue. I do not know a single person who wants to prevent people from dressing how they want, or behaving how they want, or choosing any name that they want. However,
Well,
the
wait,
problem
okay.
is,
So you don't, but you know such people are out there.
I'm
know
sure
that.
such people exist in the same way that there are people who
You know
believe that the Earth is flat and so on, but
Yeah,
they're
okay.
a tiny minority.
They exist.
It is
I don't know
not
how
a
tiny they are, given the dialogue today.
Fair
but go
point.
on.
Fair point. However, what I would say is that the conversation in the public consciousness has become prominent not between people who want to defend the right of anyone to dress how they want and the people who want to prevent that. The reason the conversation has become an issue is that we assign and allow certain privileges to people based on their sex. If you are female, you get to go to places that only other females are in, like changing rooms and toilets and so on. If you are female, you get to compete only with people of your sex, because females are at a disadvantage in physical competition to males in almost every sport. In other words, we carve out certain areas where your sex matters tremendously, even though we may respect your right everywhere else to believe that you are whatever you are, to dress however you are, etc. So your claim that today you woke up and put lipstick on and grew your hair out long and tweezed out your moustache and whatever, and therefore you are female, has an impact on other people in certain contexts in which that is a problem.
You
and
gave only two
increasingly-
contexts. Do you have others?
Sorry, I wasn't finished. And in those contexts, it is essential, people would argue, to protect women from unfair competition and from various risks for which female-only spaces already exist. That's why people are having this conversation.
Okay.
It's not out of bigotry.
Do you have more than those two examples? And I'll address each of those in turn. But do you have more than those two? Probably not. Okay. So, let me address
sports-
those two examples.
Do you have more than two? And you guys speak up. Oh, probably not. Again, I should have brought a prop for this show today. A little model steamroller, just with Neil deGrasse Tyson's face on it, just pushing over these guys.
Directly. I'll address them.
Sports is very important.
You
and
said that. You don't have to
Female-only
repeat.
spaces.
I remembered. So, but you don't seem to have a third example. So, and even if you do, we presume that would be a very distant third compared to those two cases. All right.
No, there's a third one I can give you very easily.
No,
In
tell
this
me.
country, for politics, we have female-only shortlists for positions in Parliament. Therefore,
Oh, I didn't know
if you
about
claim
that. That's interesting. Okay.
Well, that's another example. I can give you more. So female-only shortlists. There are certain targets within corporations for diversity targets to have a certain number of women on the board. Therefore, when you make a claim that you are female, you are attempting, whether intentionally or not, to insert yourself into categories that are deliberately designed to protect women's interests. That is the concern that people have. So there's 4 examples for you there. Please address them.
Sure. So interesting about the parliament. I have to look into that to find out what is it try to ensure the representation of women? Is that the goal?
That's correct.
Yes, yeah, okay,
correct.
fine. So it's a perfectly noble cause there. So
Is it? I always thought you choose the best person for the job. But it looks like in Parliament, again, another country, it looks like you just have to be a certain gender and they got a job right for you. So thereby, you could also argue taking away the best qualifications, because instead of having traditional politics where anyone could be elected, you get the biggest sample size. Now they're saying, oh no, you can only choose from this sample size, which some sections in the United States have done, and we've seen those outcomes are not so good. But nevertheless, let's get back to Mr. Tyson.
about personal changing spaces, okay? That's a solvable problem, of course, and we basically have accomplished that here in Manhattan, where I live. Practically all bathrooms are either multi-gender, or solo bathrooms, so only one person at a time, or you walk into a space and there's stalls that are closed off, but then you exit the stall and you come to a communal sink, okay?
Nice.
Yeah.
So it's a solvable problem
That doesn't solve safety or many of the concerns that people have.
where everyone has a private space rather than for themselves, rather than having a gender private space. Okay, it's solvable on a level. By the way, let me give an example. We have a school from the early 20th century in New York, and I just saw it the other day. There's an entrance here and an entrance there, and this entrance says girls, and this entrance says boys. It's like, what the fuck? What?
Wow.
You separate them just to enter the school? I can look back on that and say that was ridiculous. You guys, what were you thinking?
They actually have separate schools for boys and girls. The older I get, the more I can't help but think there's a lot of upside to those types of teaching institutions.
But back then, I'm sure it made complete sense that you're going to send the girls through that entrance, and there's an elementary school, and the boys through that entrance, okay? So it is possible to look back on whatever you were doing and say, my gosh, that was really short-sighted, and look at the solution that was proposed and implemented. That was a good idea. We moved on from that. Okay, so I remember boys' rooms where you come out and you whip it out, and we'd all be peeing into a trough. Okay, we don't have those anymore.
We do,
We do.
because we're technologically very far behind.
Has he ever been to a football stadium or sports ball stadium? Even most men's public restrooms and washrooms, they don't have dividers. They might have a couple urinals on the wall.
Yeah.
Okay, so and then we had urinals just lined up on a wall that was a little more private, and now those urinals have little small but real dividers, so you're not like looking over. So there are solutions to the privacy problem, and we've all but solved that here. I can't speak for every state in the United States. Definitely here in New York City, the bathrooms it's not all right. That's that. Second, with sports, very interesting. There was a case where a woman wanted to be they wanted to disqualify her from an event. And she had very big muscles, and she had naturally high testosterone levels. Okay, and she was genetically female, but unusually high testosterone levels, and so that weirded everybody out. So I'm wondering whether the future of those sports is you don't contest gender with gender. You contest hormone ratios.
Well, hold on a second.
What
But
do
the
you think of
difference
that?
is
That's one of my favorite. It's one of the most rudimentary arguments. That one dog only has 3 legs. Therefore, all dogs have to have 3 legs. Or, what? You're talking about outliers. But nevertheless, we'll get back to Nielsen's sufferability, many might say.
Differences physiologically between men and women are not just hormonal. Women have a different hip angle, they have different heart capacity, they have different lung capacity. I mean, there are profound physiological differences, different bone density. We've had professional athletes on the show to talk about it.
I don't have a problem with that. So then you find ways to slice the population so that whatever the event is interestingly contested. So
does he want like a dozen different categories? Keep in mind, most sports are not profitable too.
for example, I wrestled in my life. I was captain of my high school wrestling team. It would be unfair for me at 190 pounds, which is what I was back then, to wrestle someone 120 pounds.
Hold on, it would actually be unfair for you to wrestle someone who is also 190 pounds but female.
Let me work my way there. Let me just work my way there, because
Fine.
you are. I respect how active your brain is, but I've thought about all this, and just allow me to speak it at the rate that I do. Okay.
Go for it.
So it would be unfair. So they have in wrestling. They said, let's make weight categories. Okay. So they make weight categories. So I don't wrestle the 120. I wrestle 190 pounder. So a wrestling match is not just this one person against the other person. It's 10 matches. And each one is intensely interesting because they are matched. Okay? So what the trans conversation is foisting upon us is the need to find ways to slice the athletic universe such that we still have interesting fair matches. And is it a combination of, did you go through puberty as a male and then transition? Did you have puberty blockers? What is your hormone level now if you want to compete? So it requires more creative thought. Rather than saying no to it all, let's be creative about this, as we were with wrestling, as we are with practically any other sport. In rowing, there's a heavyweight rowing and there's lightweight rowing. They don't compete against each other. Somebody came up with that to resolve the problem because more than one category of person wanted to compete. So I agree with you, it's an unsolved problem, yes, but it's not unsolvable given what we know about human physiology. So why not rise to that occasion and solve it, rather than take your older view of the world?
I guess I should also clarify in this video, interestingly enough, his hair is not blue or pink. It looks like his hair is the same as it always was. Very interesting. That I suspect that might change in the future, perhaps?
And force modern emergent conduct of people to fit that.
Okay, well, can we just come back to the female shortlist and other opportunities that women are afforded by virtue of being women, and them now being excluded from that because males are entering that competition?
Yeah, so a deeper problem, thank you for bringing that up, a deeper problem there is...
He still didn't address the issues of, if a man and a woman, if they're the same weight, you have, again, different bone density, you have different reaction times, different muscle composition percentages. But no, Neil forgets about those apparently, or maybe he'll bring it up in the next 2 minutes, maybe.
Why were women underrepresented to begin with? What kind of bias exists within Parliament or among the voters, maybe even the female voters, that prevented the representation from being there in the first place? That's a whole other social question that maybe can and should be answered at a deeper level.
It seems like he's going into everything is a social construct. Science isn't real for Neil. Yeah, it rhymed. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. Oh.
Than a quota coming in after the fact.
Oh, I'm not a fan of quotas, but if they exist...
That's how I would address that question.
Hold on a second. That's not addressing the question at all. The question is, female shortlist exists. Should biological males be allowed to enter those female shortlists? That's as simple as the question is.
Yeah, I'm saying I would ask why you have the short list in the first place. It's because there's something deeper that's wrong with society, that women are underrepresented in governance. So to say now to protect that now and not try to get to the root of that problem, I think is the cart in front of the horse. So I would go deeper to that problem. So
But
you
there
don't
are
have to
women
have that question.
whose opportunities are being curtailed today because they are being forced to compete, whether in sports or elsewhere, against people who have some kind of advantage over them.
We're in a
So-
transitional period, so we have to figure that out. But the way to figure out things that require solutions to progressive change is not to regress it to how things once were. If that were the case, I would still be drinking from a segregated water fountain.
The most cliche thing with every cultural topic we have these days always goes back to the same cliched example.
Okay? Oh, let's merge the water fountains and let's create the opportunities from below so that we don't even need the short list. Okay? That's how I would approach this. So yeah, we're in the middle of solving that problem now. Let's figure it out together.
I think a lot of people would have an issue with what you're saying, Neil, is because they see women being denied opportunities. They see an unfair playing field, metaphorically and literally speaking.
So fix the playing field, damn it! What? Don't say it's an unfair playing field. So all of a sudden the big
He's devolved into a political pun, to say the least. All emotion, no logic from Neil. Neil no longer keeps it real, as the youth might say. I'm surprised he's not crying right now, actually. Well, maybe he will. Got 15 seconds left of this highlight clip, so perhaps.
issue is trans women taking the slot of a woman in an unfair playing field. Fix the playing field. And you know something? The day you fix that playing field, this conversation will look completely ridiculous. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Oh, he got really bombastic. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Well, I do agree with Neil in the fact that he does certainly sound ridiculous, he himself actually. That is very true. Now that clip on the good old Twitter, now it's called the X, got 3.3 million views over the course of 3 days. Now, can't help but wonder, what are the comments going to look like? Positive, negative, all yay, all nay? Let's dive in. Looks like one of the top, we have two. We have a response and then someone who ratios them beyond all belief. So someone by the name of Papaloo says, quote, I thought he came across really well and brought up really good points. Fix the playing field being one, and the other that quotas are a symptom of a deeper problem which should be addressed. Agree or disagree with him, he always makes you think deeper or in ways you've never considered. All right, I can't help but think there's a Ukraine flag on his profile, maybe? No, interestingly enough, just in a New Yorker. So, the person who responds to that person is someone by the name of Nigel Bartholomew Hogwallop LGB. Quite a long name, but nevertheless, a name. This person says, quote, does the hormone levels affect the heart and lungs? Quote, unquote, no. Well, absolutely, yes. Men also have bigger hearts on average. Not just, emotionally, but physically compared to women. Now, that person did get 154 likes, so I was going to say, a ratio. Someone by the name of Arthur Advid said, Neil is solid here, unquote. That person got 8 likes out of 2,000 views. Now, they were ratioed by Comrade Ptolemism. That person said, is this sarcasm? And they got 15 likes. So, ratioed, as the youth might say. Now, it looks like someone by the name of Kristen, she says, just for me, LOL, I've never had days where I decided I was 20% male and dressed in a muscle shirt. I've had plenty of days where I didn't feel like putting on makeup or screwing with my hair, so up into a baseball cap it goes with jeans and t-shirt. That never made me feel like a man. I can't imagine being so constantly confused about what percent of a gender you feel like on a certain day. He has always been, quote unquote, out there, but he's jumped off a cliff this time. Now, this person got 421 likes. Now, someone did attempt to ratio her. This person tried. So this person's name is Atomic Cat and 15 others. Now, it looks like perhaps that uranium is depleted because not so atomic is this person's response. So this person responds to Kristen saying, quote, just because you don't do it doesn't mean other people don't. Newsflash, random 40-year-old lady but some people live different lives from you and have different experiences. Isn't that insane? Some people actually feel differently from you about everyday life, and ain't that just blow your mind, unquote. So I get a D- for grammar as well. So Kristen, she got 421 likes. This person responding to her got 1. Ratioed, to say the least. Now, not to brag, but when I'm on the Twitter sphere, I usually get 2 likes, sometimes even 3, at NICTOPPING, or my alternative profile, The Topping Show, for more fun facts. Let me see here. What are the other comments on here? Going left, right, up, down, sideways. Let's see here. 11. Someone with the best, some of the greatest likes I've ever seen. So this person is by the name of 5 times August. Said, quote, "That face you make when you're dead inside because you sold your soul to the fake science and have to shill nonsense the rest of your life," unquote. And that person took a appropriate screenshot of Neil looking quite inebriated and upset. I got 2,375 likes out of 25,000 views. Quite well. Someone actually responded to him by the name of Richard Dick Whitman saying, quote, "I feel 80% dinosaur today," unquote. And they got 80 likes out of 2,000 views. And it looks like someone by the name of Will Harley said, quote, "When we wake up in the morning and we exaggerate whatever feature we want to portray, why is he saying this obvious lie? Why have people started talking like this?" unquote. Now, Mr. Will Harley got 291 likes out of 7,000 views. Looks like we have more. I'd say we'll do one more. We have a gentleman by the name of Mr. McThickens, or Dr. I apologize. A Dr. Mr. McThickens saying, quote, "Especially shocked as Tyson studies a hard science, one deeply rooted in fundamental physical reality. Magical thinking has no place in objective physical reality, such as physics, yet here he is endorsing unspecific and woefully understudied gender feelings." This person also included a meme, or a meme, as you might say, and it has Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell, the quote in the graphic says, quote, "In democracy, we have always had to worry about the ignorance of the uneducated. Today, we have to worry about the ignorance of people with degrees," unquote. Which is a fastly growing sentiment. So it looks like, I'd say 90 to 95%. All the comments just roasting Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. And then, let's see here. Someone just saying as simple as, or Mr. Roro said, quote, "I'm so dislike Neil now." That person got 115 likes out of 4,800 views. Now let me know in the comments, has this increased your perception of Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, or has it decreased it, or oddly enough, is it about the same? Has your opinion about Neil deGrasse Tyson not changed one iota? It'll be interesting to see, but he is certainly going out his main purview of talking about asteroids and what used to be his core competencies, being an astrophysicist. It will be interesting to see what this does to his reputation. But you know me, as I always say, time shall tell. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. I really appreciate it. Don't forget trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of September. I know it's a tall order, but if you click that button, I greatly appreciate it. Also, don't forget, Type Technologies is giving me a free flamethrower with every September purchase. Yes, you can mount it to an AR-15 like all awesome accessories can. Go to toppingtechnologies.com to learn a little bit more. And also, don't forget to take the time to like and comment. The feedback is greatly appreciated, trying to build this out better and better. Trying to find a software that will do really well in terms of production, picture-in-picture. So I have clips above me. I've tried a couple, but they keep crashing. So suggestions are greatly appreciated as we make the show better together. So comments and likes are also appreciated. Lastly, and also, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.